My name is Arun Nagarajan. I'm with the developer relations team for Google Apps.
And my name is Christoph. I'm the lead engineer of the YouTube Analytics API.
And this session is ad hoc analysis with Google Apps Script and the YouTube Analytics API. So before we get started, how many folks here have content on YouTube or work for someone that has content on YouTube? Awesome. That's what I thought. We're in the right room. Last quarter, I think it was last quarter, we announced that YouTube has 1 billion unique viewers a month. That's billion with a B. That's big even by Google standards. And it's quality apps from content from folks like you that really make that number possible. Now, as content owners, as developers, you may feel that the amount of volume, the volume of analysis and analytics coming at you is a sea of data, right? That's petabytes of data in a lot of ways. In this session, what you're going to learn is how could you take that and package it, share it, and automate it so that you're able to get meaning out of it. So the whole idea is to take the YouTube Analytics API and using a really powerful product called Google Apps Script, write custom analysis, do ad hoc analytics using the API for the data source. All right? So the agenda for today is I'm going to start off talking about what Apps Script is all about. So we're going to just give you a quick introduction to Google Apps Script. There's a lot to cover, so we'll just have a high-level introduction. Then Christoph's going to talk about the YouTube Analytics product itself. Then he's going to cover the API, which is really important for developers. And then I'll talk about how you will be able to marry that API with Google Apps Script, which is the programming platform we're going to use for this demonstration. And then just in general, be able to do more with the YouTube Analytics product. All right? Sound good? Let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is just introduce you to Google Apps Script. Google Apps Script is a cloud-based JavaScript platform that allows you to do more with Google. The products you love, like Gmail, Drive, Sites, Docs, Sheets, and more, have APIs built into Google Apps Script. So you're able to write automation, you're able to write integration, you're able to write UI even that can be serviced into these products. And the best thing is that it's not just about Google Apps. You're able to call other Google APIs like the Analytics API or even third-party APIs like Twitter's API. And the great thing about all of it is that it's all just JavaScript. So you're able to learn this really quickly. You're able to get productive in it really quickly. So it's a lot easier to show this than talk about it, I think. So what we'll attempt is a live demo of writing a simple script that does a couple of integration scenarios. So let's get started. So I'm going to go to my Drive. I could either click on Create and Script, or my favorite approach, which is script.google.com. Really easy to remember URL. And what I'm going to do is this is the welcome screen. I'll hit Close, and I'm just going to write some code that hopefully will make a lot of sense to you guys. So first thing first is that you're seeing that autocomplete is really assisting me. So it's verb followed by noun. In my case, I'm using a test inbox, so I don't have to worry about this timing out on me. But you'll want to have thresholds available for that. And what I can do as well is just write a really simple loop, and then just iterate through that. Oop. Hard coding standing up. Let's see, I'll just get threads. I'll get the message subject. So you can see that it's even auto-completing within a collection. And for a functional programming like a language like JavaScript, it's really impressive. Dynamic language like JavaScript. What I'll do now is take the doc that I created, and I'll get its body. And autocomplete really helps me out, especially when I forget what the function is called. I'll write the message and close it. So I'll call this Gmail archiver, save it. And now this script itself is in my Drive. So it's a first-class citizen. You know where to find it. It's an easy-to-find icon as well. It's a little arrow. And what I'll do now is just hit Run. So you can see that we're in a Cloud IDE. So I'll authorize the script. Even though I wrote it, it's important to give it some identity. So it's going to run as me. And I'll hit Run. So now when I go into my Drive, you can see that a new file popped in. And I can open that. And that's my Gmail messages. And you can see that those are the messages I have in my test inbox. So the whole thing of what we just showed here is that I think we have about 7, 8 lines of code, really easy to write JavaScript with autocomplete. All I had to do was go to a URL in a web browser and then hit run rather than compile, deploy, manage configuration, and things like that. So that's Google Apps Script. What we just showed you is accessing Gmail and then populating a document with it dynamically that we also created on the fly, right? So that's what Google Apps Script allows you to do. So let's review some of the properties of what we just saw. So you write code in a browser, really good syntax highlighting, you saw line numbers, just a lot of really nice things that makes you feel at home. It's not something that you have to start up Eclipse or something a little bit more heavyweight to work on. Really easy to find your code. It's in Drive automatically. You run it on Google's servers. So your code, when you hit run, fires up in our data centers and acts on your behalf. So that's really powerful. And you don't have to worry about configuration and deployment of servers and things like that. And best of all, it comes with a set of integration APIs to the apps I mentioned, Gmail and so on. But also, you can write your own integration logic to anything that has a standard API. So we have JDBC connectivity, we have HTTP connectivity, and so on. So a bunch of Google products, ability to surface HTML and connect to third-party APIs, and a bunch of utilities to make your programming lives easier. Formatting all the way to things like locking and caching, which are really hard to write from scratch. And the best part is that it's just JavaScript improved with Google APIs that run on the Google servers. So that, in a nutshell, is Google Apps Script. And now Christoph's going to talk about what YouTube Analytics is.
Thank you, Arun. So Arun already mentioned it. YouTube has now over 1 billion monthly active users. I mean, this is just a staggering number. And I think this success has been made possible through all the YouTube channels and partners that uploaded this content in the first place. We at YouTube Analytics, we want to support these YouTube creators to make smart decisions for their content on YouTube so that they can track their performance, they can understand their audience better, and that they can know how their content is being consumed. For this, we catch every view and every like and many other user events on YouTube, and we attribute those to the right videos and sum this up to the level of YouTube channels and partners. We then take those reports and surface them to the owners through our user interface at youtube.com/analytics. So now I would like to quickly introduce you to this tool. It's really an amazing product. It will also help you to get started with the API. So it's going to give you more context around the data that we expose. So here I'm currently logged into a content owner, and this content owner is associated to Google, and he does not monetize his videos. So therefore, there are no earnings, and that's expected, so that's not a bug. So as you can see, we are now on the overview page, and we have many more detailed reports available on the left-hand side. And these reports with the overview page are accessible for all videos and all channels and all shows of the content owner. And you can also get a report for each country and different date ranges up here. You see on top, there are the performance metrics. So the views, followed by for how many minutes his content has been watched. Also the earnings, and then the engagement metrics, like the likes, the shares, and the comments, and so forth. Further down, we have the top channels and the top videos of this content owner, either by views, minutes watched, or estimated earnings. Further down, we have some highlights around the demographics of the viewers, and also where the viewers are coming from, what's the location of the viewers. Also the playback location, the traffic source. So basically this tells you from where users navigate to your content on YouTube. Then we also have a report about playback location. So this is going to tell you were the playbacks on the YouTube watch page or on mobile, or was it on embedded, using the embedded player. So this means on other sites embedding YouTube videos. So now for the example, I'm going to drill into this report. I want to find out what sites embed this content on the videos. So in this report, we see how the different types of playbacks changed over time. And we also have here a link that brings us to all the sites that embedded this content owner's videos. And now we are on the lowest level, so now we see the sites that contributed most playbacks to this content owner. Okay, this was just a short example to show you the large number of reports that we have available at YouTube Analytics. And now with the API, we basically make these reports available for you, for the developers, so that you can go and create awesome applications. So we really want to empower you to provide services to YouTube channels and YouTube partners. And also help partners to integrate with our partners, with our data, to customize their video reporting. So many larger partners probably don't want to give their employees access to our UI. Rather, they want to extract the data that's relevant for their employees and ship it off using some other tools. So the API is based on the same data as the UI, so therefore the numbers will match whatever you query. Also, this is a pure query interface, so you really have to specify precise questions, like what are the views and the likes for a particular video over the last 30 days. All requests to the API has to be authorized using OAuth 2 by the owner of the entity that you request to report for. And we support two different types of accounts, YouTube channels and YouTube partners. Probably now you want to know how you can specify the query, how you can drill into this data set. For this, we have three important terms. So dimension, metrics, and filters. So dimension and metrics are terms of the data cube. So on this slide, I have a small data cube with 3 dimensions. And the dimensions are the criteria used to group the data of the report. So for example, the country where the user event was coming from, or the video that was associated with the user event, but also the time when the event happened. So the metrics, they are basically in the cells of the data cube, and they are the measurement of user activity, like users watching a video or subscribing to your channel or liking a video or favoriting, and so forth. So with the filter, you can cut out the slice of the data cube. So for example, you only want to have a report for France, you could cut it in one way, or if you want to have a report for video B, you can slice out this. In our documentation, we refer to report as the combination of dimension, metric, and filters. And that's really important because we do not support all combinations of those entities. So let us look at the live example now. So I want to get a report for a channel of our content owner. For this, I'm going to first look at what reports are available for content owners. So I'm going to look at the documentation. So I already navigated to our developer site. And I see that when I don't specify any dimensions, so I don't want to have a breakdown by a dimension, just the bare metrics, and I want to filter to one channel, I can use any combination of all these metrics. And now for the example, I'm going to pick views, likes, and estimated minutes watched. So with this, I'm going to go to the YouTube API Explorer, Google API Explorer. This is a tool which is available for all Google APIs of the latest generation. It's really an awesome tool to explore Google APIs. You see I navigated already to our API and our method, the query method, and you immediately see the required request parameter. So IDs allows you to specify what account you want to use for the query, and the start and the end date will allow you to specify the date range that you want to be included in the report. And the metrics is required, so you have to specify one metric, otherwise the query makes no sense to us. And I entered already my choice. And also the filter, so I filter this query to one particular channel. Now I need to authorize this query by clicking on this. So now I'm ready to execute the query. As you can see, by default, we get a JSON response. But if you prefer, you can also get a CSV. So the response contains first metadata around the columns of the result table. So what's the data type, is it the dimension or metric, and the name, and followed by the actual result table in the rows element. As we did not ask for any dimensional breakdown, it's just going to be one row. And it's the views, it's these numbers, the likes, and the minutes watched. So I now just scratched on the surface of the API. So if you're interested in the YouTube Analytics API, you can attend another session. It's going to be tomorrow in the same room, just after the lunch break. It's going to be hosted by Jeremy, Ted, and Chris. So that's it. I'm going to hand back to Arun.
Thanks, Christoph.
Thanks.
So that was really, I think, a really good introduction to what the YouTube Analytics API is all about. There's a wealth of information there. When I first had experience with it, I was really surprised at how much data you can actually get out of it. And as developers, you want to be able to operate on it quickly. At Google, we love data. At Google, we love giving you APIs to this data. It's really important for you guys to build tools and applications on top of this data. But at the same time, there's a whole set of choices of programming platforms that you can build on. For a lot of reasons, you may want to go to something that's heavyweight and build something that you want to have full control over. But for a lot of simple reports and analytics, there's a programming platform that we think is ideal for it, which is Google Apps Script, especially when it comes to loading information into a spreadsheet or just building some nice reports that you want to give access to a business user and shield them from having to deal with all the different complexities of the UI, or maybe it's too sensitive of data to give them full access to the analytics UI, right? So you want to build something yourself to package that up nicely. So what we're going to be talking about in the rest of the session is how are you able to do more with the YouTube Analytics system? So we give you a really nice interface to browse around on the web. We give you an API to get raw data if you want to, but what about building the custom report? So in this next section, we're going to talk about how will you build these reports. Then we'll talk about how can you share that. So what are some of the things that we offer you so that you're able to take the reports that you build and then share that out with the right set of people at the right time. And then automate as well. So a lot of times you may find yourself doing every Monday morning, check for something, or once a quarter, make sure that the numbers are representative of what you expect them to be. Things like that, where potentially there exists a system that you can have that automatically run for you and then push you an alert through email or some other mechanism of an interesting event that happens, right? So the automate part is really important. And the last part that we'll talk about as well is integrate. So around how can you take data from other systems. Maybe it's the website analytics product, or maybe it's Twitter's data feed, and blend that and get a comprehensive view of how it applies to your YouTube viewership, right? So we'll talk about all these different sort of things that you can build. We'll start with build. So very first thing you want to do is be able to load data into a spreadsheet. So let's start with that. So we'll do more live demos, and we'll see how that all goes. Great. So what I have here is I already have a spreadsheet open, and I already have some scripts written against it. All the code that we've written for this will be all open source and shared, so don't need to scramble down to write anything down. So just kind of follow along and see what's possible. So what I've done is the very first thing we've done is injected a custom menu. Let me zoom in a little bit. That's a little bit better, I think. What we've done first is inject a custom menu into a spreadsheet, into a Google spreadsheet. So let's start with clicking in that. So what that's going to do is fire up a little UI that's built in HTML to, we called it the ad hoc report generator. You can call it whatever. But the very first thing you need to do is authorize it, because it's just an application that's running on behalf of you. So again, it's going to use OAuth 2. So we're going to click on Authorize App. That's going to open up the standard dialog that you're used to for granting OAuth. I'm going to authorize it against my work account. It's going to say, OK, it wants to be able to view my YouTube Analytics, allow access. And then it's going to spin in and grab the token on behalf of us. And it says you can close this window now. I'm brought back to the spreadsheet where I left off. And you can see that it was smart enough to pick up the fact that a token was saved under my properties. And it says, OK, now you're good to go. I didn't have to hit refresh or anything. So we've kind of streamlined that in this demo. And then what we've also done is really simplified the interface to the few things that may matter for this particular business use case. Okay? So everything about this is fully configurable and up to the developer, but we've just built something to demonstrate what's possible. So I've just kind of simplified it to metrics and dimensions. And you can see that we've kind of put English next to what the API offers by saying viewer percentage, watch time, and then also just had simple dimensions that may make sense. So let's start with this. Let's hit load. What's going to happen is it's going to spin. And you can see that behind the scenes, it calls the API and very quickly loads that into a spreadsheet. So that was really quick. And it made a RESTful call out to our API and then pulled the data in. And there you can see that it's kind of the raw data, but as a business analyst or someone that's non-technical, they're really familiar with spreadsheets. They know how to do more with spreadsheets than sometimes developers do, right? And I've seen that a lot. So this raw data is immediately valuable for someone that wants to understand, okay, for ages between 55 and 64, give me the gender breakdown, right? That's important stuff that we're pulling down here. So let's go in, let's keep going, let's see what else is possible. The next thing that I'll pull down is I'll go down to just a 10-day window to keep the data set reasonable. And I'll say I want to look at watch time, minutes watched across the last set of 10 days there, right? So I'm going to say load. And again, this is going to spin. And behind the scenes, it's going to pull down the set of data that I care for. So again, it's now in a spreadsheet. I can start doing some really interesting things like click on data, sort range, and say sort by day. And the data sorts. Little things that sometimes are really important to be able to customize and find the right slice of information that's useful to you. What else can we do? So we can pick a column. We can say format it to have conditional formatting of value greater than 100, make the text green, right? So you're able to pull out any intelligence there that is immediately visually available. You can also take advantage of other trending information using a feature that we released, I think was last year, is just sparkline a range of cells. So now that's the sparkline for minutes watched for the last 10 days of April. And I can kind of drag that across and then see that for view duration and view percentage as well. So, and this is just April end report. So now you've taken numbers away and just built a very simple report that can be immediately looked at and shared and printed and all sorts of things that might be important for your audience. Let's keep going. The other thing that we can do as well is engagement metrics with social media. So I'll just go and say, I want to look at where are, oh, actually I'm skipping one. Let's look at views and likes by country. This is actually a fun one. This is going to load, I think, quite a bit of data. I think it was close to 200 last time I looked. So this is what countries and are my videos being watched in, and what is the shares, so what's the views and likes in those countries. And I think when you saw Christoph pull that up in the channel that he had, Latin America and the US were big. So let's see if that's true. So this is a lot of data. What I can do very easily is just select those 3 columns, click on this little icon here that says Insert Chart, go to Charts, pick a map, select that, and hit Insert. And that's going to immediately pull up some geographical information that is exactly the data that I want. And that correlates with what we saw where Brazil and the US and Mexico were more lit up than, and also Russia, than the rest of the world. So these are some of the things that you can do once your data is in a spreadsheet, and you can see the ease with which someone can operate in an interface that they're already familiar with. And this is what makes it ad hoc, is that you're not pre-canning these reports for your business users or your executives. You're giving them raw data in a tool where they can do more with it, right? So that's sort of the message behind this. And we'll take a look at one other thing to kind of bring this home, which is, like I said, we want to look at sharing services. And again, this is going to, whoa.
Shares.
Oh, I'm showing the error messages too, so I picked the wrong, I picked a metrics and dimension pair that doesn't make sense. But that's how you know it's real demos. Shares with sharing service. There you go. That should load. And that loaded in behind the scenes for us here, and so that kind of tells me, okay, there's some regional players, and there's also the big names where are things being reshared from my channel. The channel, by the way, that we're doing this analytics for is this particular channel, Build Your Brand on YouTube, and there's really a lot of good content there that I think is interesting to look at as well, just from a standpoint of what are we looking at here. Great. So we talked about how do we load this data in. So a lot of really cool stuff. We talked about how can we build some of this into nice charts, like we show here. But what if you want to share this out? What if you want to make this available? The spreadsheets have a really nice sharing model. There's a share button there that's very prominent, easy to send it to someone just as view-only access. But it actually has some really nice things that go beyond that. So here's a little dashboard-like thing that I built using some of the data that I already showed. social media and minutes watched. And what I can do very easily is go to File and Publish. And you can pick which sheet you want to publish to the web. So this is great for, when you want to make something available as a simple-to-use URL. So once this is published, what you could do is house that data in a Google site. So this is a read-only copy of the analytics that we were able to build very quickly. And this is filtered, this is labeled with the right terminology. It's just the slice of data that matters for your users, the terminology that makes sense to them. And they can refresh it when the data changes. This will reflect it. And it's not a matter of stale data that's on a printed page somewhere. The nice thing is that a lot of the formatting and the charts are dynamic as well, so I can kind of hover over things and see what am I looking at. And again, Sites also has its own sharing model where you can kind of restrict it further down to your domain or really any sort of set of users you want. So that's really nice to be able to take the data you're able to build into a spreadsheet, build a nice dashboard, and then share it out through a URL. But you may also want to sometimes be more proactive and push alerts to a user. So maybe they are not very good at going to a site every day and checking something, or maybe they prefer to get an email first thing in the morning. And the great thing about Google Apps Script is that it allows you to do things. Just like how we were able to read email through the Gmail API, you can actually send emails as well. So let's take a look at what that feels like. So what I have here is the code that was powering everything. And like I said, all of this will be released. And there's a function here called send nightly email. And what I could just hit, and I'm just going to run it for now. So I'm going to run that email. And what that's going to do is, here's my Gmail. And there's the email that showed up, my daily YouTube sharing report. And you can call it whatever you want. And you can attach it with nice HTML with inline images and all sorts of really fancy stuff. All of this is really well documented. But in this example, I just attached a simple PNG to my spreadsheet. So there's a lot of really cool things you can do. And I'm also, you're able to send rich HTML messages as well. So something that changes the model of someone going to a URL to get their analytics to someone being able to just get it by checking their email, which is, again, a very familiar interface. One other thing you could do is schedule things to run, right? So we have this concept of triggers that allows you to, if you guys are familiar with the concept of cron, it allows you to schedule scripts to be run at a specified time frame. So what you could do is pick a function like alerts on view increase, and then say run it every day at midnight. And what that allows you to do is apply some business logic, like compare views across from yesterday to today, and if the amount increases or decreases by 50%, send out emails to the top people. Let them know that, hey, they should figure out what happened, why is their video gaining or decreasing in popularity, or other things. Or you can look at share metrics or your monetization data, things like that. So so to bring it all together, what we're able to do here is run your business logic on Google data centers against the YouTube Analytics API, and through email, notify people in your organization when something of interest happens. And this is all possible with just very little code that I think you'd be surprised by how productive you can be. So that's the concept of triggers. And you can really have several triggers. You can have, and the time frames that you can pick are quite good. So you can say something like run it on the first of the month and all sorts of good stuff. So let's go back here. We talked about sharing. We talked about being able to automate, so turning it into a push-based model. The functions themselves can be scheduled, and we give you storage mechanisms where you can drop in this details about what was yesterday's numbers, and then you can just write some simple code to compare it, right? And you can even create things like calendar events. So you could, have a meeting automatically created when something happens in YouTube Analytics API. Call a meeting through an automated script, right? So really, the possibilities are pretty endless. In fact, there's also the Cloud Print API. So we've seen people write interesting things where it automatically sends a print job. So the printer is ready. There's faxing APIs available. So all sorts of stuff. It's really fun to play around, and I think you guys will really agree that it's a great way to write apps for the Analytics API. The last thing that I think is interesting is when you want to look at other trending items. One piece of data about Zeitgeist is Twitter trending topics, right? So you could ask Twitter, given a region ID, what is the trending topic for that at that point in time? And you can build all sorts of really interesting things. So one of the things that you probably noticed is that I have a function here called Twitter trending. So here's sort of what has been trending in, I just picked sort of 4 different countries. And what I could do now is just say, all right, load the trending topic. It's going to call the API. It's going to comma delimit the trending topics and then just log it. So the limit on this is, I think, is 15 every 15 minutes, 15 calls every 15 minutes. So depending on how you want to structure it, you can start loading this in and correlate this with the other country information that we're giving you. Where did that go? There it is. So you're able to build these correlation things because we give you the sort of the API access to our data, but then also we allow you to call any REST-based service or SOAP-based service to get data from there. And it's up to you to be able to blend that in. I can't imagine iOS 13 is not trending in the United States. Oh, well, no. The heck? I can't explain that. But let's take a quick look at the code. The code's actually really straightforward. There's this concept of the trending API. And I just, like I said, loaded in a few region IDs. And I'm just iterating through that and just parsing it through a very simple call and appending it to my spreadsheet. So really straightforward. And you can write some your own logic to blend the data in and do, again, you can complete the loop by pulling in the notification part as well, saying, hey, this topic is trending on Twitter. Perhaps we should feature this video on our home screen, right? So there are a lot of different use cases that, if you really think about, now become possible. Cool. So we talked about being able to integrate. So let's bring it all together. What are we talking about here? So we talked about being able to build these reports, pull data into your spreadsheet. We talked about being able to take that data that you build very easily, then share it through email, share it through Google Sites, and just using the spreadsheet sharing features. Talked about being able to automate it. So I just ran a function manually, but then showed you that there's a way to trigger your JavaScript functions to run across various things. And then also integrate. So you're able to bring in data from Twitter or bring in data from the stock market, weather, all sorts of really interesting things, and then look at how that helps you or hurts you with your content that you have. So there are a lot of technical details that unfortunately we didn't have time to go into. The first one is, I just showed you the code really quickly, is the ability to make outbound URL fetch calls. So that's basically an HTTP call. A lot of really good documentation on our site. developers.google.com/apps-script. The search is great as well, and you can find what you need there. OAuth 2. It's actually a lot simpler than you think a lot of times to implement OAuth 2. And there's a much more detailed video we have where we walk you through the process. It involves creating a developer console project on our site. And it does require you to deploy your app script as a web app so you can get the callback to store the token. Triggers allow you to schedule things. So it's really powerful. There's all the APIs that are available in your regular mechanisms are available in the triggers. And the last thing is you have to be aware of the quotas. You can start using everything that we showed you today for free with a Gmail address. You don't even need anything more than that. But if you have Google Apps for Business, you have higher quota. And in general, it's not something you have to worry about. But let's say you're planning on sending out thousands of emails or creating hundreds of spreadsheets every hour. These are things that you'll want to keep in mind so you don't exceed the quota. And you design your apps according to what's possible. That's the URL where you'll be able to find the code. A lot of really good resources on the AppScript side and the YouTube side. We're pretty active on Stack Overflow, trying to answer any questions you may have. And you can find us on Google+. And we'll be at the office hours at the Sandbox as well, at the YouTube Sandbox right after this. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions. But we're super excited to see what you guys can build with it. Hopefully you saw that by injecting menus into spreadsheets, you don't even have to know scripting as a user. As long as you as the developers write the scripts for your users, they can just open up a spreadsheet and get going. So what hopefully you've seen from this is it's super easy to get started and actually quite powerful as well. Thank you very much. If you have questions, I think we have about a couple minutes here. Go ahead. Could you use the mic, please, so that the recording. Sorry.
Yeah, can you mention anything about this in Google Analytics?
Yeah, so all the techniques described in this session are entirely applicable to Google Analytics. AdSense has an API. So really anything that has structured RESTful access, especially if it has JSON output, all of this is possible. Hopefully what we're showing here comes across as a technique that you can employ rather than a packaged product that's immediately applicable to you. The things about being able to build a report, sharing, automating, and integrating are just techniques that we're showing you that is applicable to the YouTube Analytics API and other APIs from Google.
Hi, in your demo you showed something about grabbing all the countries. Now in the Analytics API, it seems like it's only one country per dimension. Is there any way to specify multiple countries, like a range of countries as a dimension, or is that something that's going to be planned in the future? The reason why I ask is we've got partners who want reports on, user activity for certain regions, right? So if you think of Europe, there's be 25 different countries in one particular region. That means one API call per country per YouTube video ID. So it eats into the quota pretty quickly.
Yeah, we don't support this right now, but we can look into enabling this. I mean, we do this for our UI dynamically, so just roll it up to the summing up the countries which belong to like Europe or North America. But it's not enabled yet, so but you can file a feature request, of course. Yeah.
I was wondering if you guys are going to enable pricing for the Analytics API at any point, if that's in the plans.
We don't have any immediate plans right now, pricing.
Okay. I was just wondering because of quota usage and stuff like that for large CMS.
I mean, you can file a request to bump up your quota, and then we will review this. We can talk to Jeff. Sorry? Yeah, okay, we were working on another project which is more geared towards like partners, which will allow you to make like a query across all your videos. So right now you can only get the top 10 videos, the same videos as I showed in the UI, but we are working on enabling like offline queries. So you submit a query, we're going to process it, later you can download it, and this will enable you to get basically the stats for all your videos in one go, basically. Yeah, probably Q3, let's say, but it's not fixed.
Cool. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you very much. So feel free to ask us questions. We'll be at the YouTube sandbox. Please fill out the surveys. We'd love to know what you thought of this, and hope this was really useful. Thank you.
Thanks.